Federal government gives thumbs up to security agencies for rescue of abducted students as Minister of Information leads delegation to Niger State.
Good morning, Nigeria. Our focus is on 16 days of activism against gender-based violence.
They say the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. But when you look closely at what many women and girls face today, that saying feels like it's under real, relentless pressure.
And you're absolutely right, Ademola. The numbers tell their own story. According to the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, nearly 1 in 3 women will experience violence in their lifetime. And adolescent girls, sadly, are the most at risk.
Unfortunately, it's a deeply troubling reality. One of the most widespread, persistent, and devastating human rights violations around the world.
And it shows up in so many harmful forms, whether physical and sexual abuse, down to damaging cultural practices like female genital mutilation, and even child marriage.
Well, this year, as always, from November 25th to December 10th, the world marked the 16 days of activism to end gender-based violence. And the focus for 2025 was united to end digital violence against all women and girls.
And that's a crucial theme because global studies show that every year, millions of women and girls face digital abuse and technology-facilitated violence. Now, online harassment alone drives many women away from the digital spaces, which limits their opportunities, skills development, access to markets, and even higher value jobs.
Women and girls make up half of the world's population and half of its potential, yet gender-based and sexual violence continue to leave deep scars in the wake of exploitation. On that note, we welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria. I'm Ademola Adeoye, and our focus is the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence.
Of course, that ended yesterday. I'm Victor Azo. Thank you for starting your Thursday with us. We're live from Abuja, the nation's capital. In just a moment, we'll bring you Chinenye Nwoye, who has the morning news. And later on, be sure. Right, if you've just joined us, this is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And just before we introduce our guests for our conversation on the 16 days of activism, let's take this background report put together by Oyeyemi Ajayi.
Unite to end digital violence against all women and girls was the theme for this year's 16 days of activism. It focused on tackling online abuse and harassment, urging governments, tech companies, and individuals to create safer digital spaces and end impunity for digital violence. The 16 days of activism is an annual event that lapses between November 25 to December 10. The key aspects of this year's activism focused on rise against image-based abuse, cyberstalking, and other digital forms of abuse. Critical to the issues are demands of legislative action, tech companies, accountability, and increased investment in feminist organizations. There was as well the call for everyone, including policymakers, individuals, to speak out, support survivors, and challenge harmful online norms. According to the International Federation of the Red Cross, digital threats are accelerating at a pace communities can barely keep up with, and far too many incidents never surface, from coordinated online harassment and persistent tracking to the misuse of personal information, manipulated imagery, and targeted misinformation. These violations undermine confidence, erode dignity, and push women out of the digital space. In their most extreme form, online attacks spill over into physical harms with consequences that can be fatal. It should be noted that women and girls comprise of about half of the world's population, as well as its strength. Despite this, gender-based violence still tends to be ravaging. Experts say every year, millions of women and girls face digital abuse and technology-facilitated violence. Online harassment alone drives many women away from digital spaces, limiting their opportunities, skills development, access to market, and even higher value jobs. Now, what has these 16 days of activism achieved this year? Can we say there's indeed enough awareness on cyberbullying against the female folks? Our guest in the studio will be answering these questions and others shortly.
Yeah, thank you very much, Oyeyemi Ajayi, for that background report on the 16 days of activism. We already have in our studio for the conversation our guest. First, in no particular order, is Lady Ejiro Umokoro. She is author and CEO, Light Ray Media. Umokoro, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me. A pleasure.
All right. Also joining us here is Hawa Abbas Hadejia. She is Silver Lining Initiative. Hawa, it's good to have you join us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right.
All right, perhaps we just start with Hawa Hadejia. Now, another year of 16 days of activism has come to an end. But why does it seem that the gender-based violence increases in terms of statistics, the numbers, in spite of advocacy through the years?
Well, there are probably many factors to that. First of all, I would want to say that culture, tradition in the African region is really affecting us as well. I believe that our religious leaders and our traditional leaders need to begin to be our spokespersons, so to speak, for the matter. Because a lot of things that happen in the home, although this year the focus is on digital violence, but a lot of things that happen in the home is related to how things are supposed to be based on particular cultures. So these are certain factors. Also mental health issues. Self-esteem is a big thing. If a woman is dealing with low self-esteem, she's more likely to be able to experience or get engaged in gender-based violence. Yeah.
What do you think will be responsible for that low self-esteem?
Multiple things, again, can be responsible. We can take it back to culture, we can take it back to religious issues, and we can just take it back to low educational background. So I'm not saying that those that are more educated are not experiencing gender-based violence, because they are, but these are all factors that are connected to it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and let's bring in Ejiro into the conversation now. We're looking at let's examine the theme for this year's 16 days activism. And it is about digital, what's it now? It's about digital, digital violence. So what exactly is digital violence, and how does it affect, women and girls?
In my organization, we call it the tech-facilitated violence. So digital is one aspect of tech.
Okay.
So with tech-facilitated gender-based violence, it's using platforms like social media of all kinds, whether it's Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, name it. We did a research, last Light Ray Media, along with some other organizations, and we collected data on Nigeria. And we discovered that in Nigeria, the #1 place where you have tech-facilitated violence was on Facebook. In other words, when you use social media platforms to target people, to violently insult them, either through words, or through stalking, or through doxing, or through any other form of manipulation with the goal to actually cause emotional harm, right? And increase attack on somebody, or even defame somebody. or specifically target a person simply because it's a form of revenge. We've seen cases where you have like revenge porn, where I know Taylor Swift is a very good example of that. Somebody just took her face, merged it with another naked body, and then presented it as if that was her that was in that state. So a situation where people were able to use deepfakes, for example. So deepfake is where you strategically use digital tools, then place whatever you've created, whether it's pictures, whether it's videos, and then you superimpose it with somebody who is not the person doing whatever it is that is happening at that point in time. And the goal, once it's done, is to see that they want to really, really break not just your confidence, they want to destroy your reputation. Somebody's having an engagement in that platform and probably even making money. So often the goal is to misinform and then direct a certain kind of traffic against that person with the simple goal that they want to crush the person and make the person irrelevant on platforms. And this is a dangerous way of accessibility that we should be concerned about. It's never been like this before. It has always been there. But the difference is that we're now having platforms that seems like they're enablers and drivers that help people who feel this is my time to get back at somebody, right? Or I want to attack somebody. And because of how it's very viral in nature, people engage in it, and something needs to be done with regard to stopping that tendencies.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Let me now introduce, am I getting that name? Let me introduce Dr. Olajumoke Adeniyi. I'm sorry you're having to rethink your name because she was with us last week.
Yes.
She's the Head of Operations at Hassan Foundation and Creative Director, Salt and Light Brand. It's good to have you back on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's my pleasure to be here once again. Thank you.
So tell us about the 16 days, this year's 16 days. We do know that over the years, in spite of the 16 days, we've still had gender-based violence. So what progress can we point to after this year's 16 days?
Thank you. From my experience and from what we've had in Abuja here, during the 16 days of activism, we've had, in fact, personally engaged in different level of going out, advocating, getting people on board that have never been on board before. For example, we went with the Mandate Secretary, Women Affairs Secretariat, Abuja, with the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs. There was a particular walk we went, and we were chanting it. Everyone had to speak about it. Now, this was not, in this march, she made a very specific statement. She said, Mr. President has a zero tolerance to gender-based violence. He's someone who is, I'm not a political, but from his experience as the president, you rarely see someone who has been in government, whose wife later became a senator repeatedly. That is for you to show that this person supports women. And we see more inclusivity of women. Though there are still gaps, and we still have a lot of gaps to fill up for women in leadership in Nigeria. But we can say there is a bit of progress. Yesterday, 2 days ago, we had an advocacy for Hassan Foundation. We spoke to the traditional birth attendants. These are the people that are involved in gender mutilation of genital parts of women, which is a serious issue in Nigeria. Gender-based violence, female genital mutilation. These ones don't even know what we're talking about, digital anything, because they are the ones at the grassroots and they don't have access to Facebook, TikTok, but what they are practicing is comprising of the figures of what we go through in Nigeria. We empowered about 100 of them. Each of these women take at least 10 births. In Nigeria alone, anyone above 50 was delivered majorly by traditional birth attendants. They were not, their mothers didn't go to a hospital. Most people, more than 80% of the people were delivered, and we still have learned people going to them. So we're taking this step, training 100 of them. Look at the figures. One woman taking 10 births, training 100 of them in that month. That means we're saving 1,000 girls at least in 2026 from facing female genital mutilation. So we can say of a truth that we are making progress because these women left more enabled, more empowered, And we also went to the grassroots. As that yesterday, we were still there chanting. One of the women at one of the 17 chiefdoms in Abuja said something about their alchemies. He said their alchemies, I can't remember his name. He said if he catches you carrying out this nonsense, and I like the word she used, nonsense, you are going to be excluded from that society. And I can testify to that because we had this outreach to them last year. We spoke, I was not even believing it. We may not see the progress, but those leaders, those grassroots leaders, which is where we need to penetrate, that are taking us back, they are in support of this. We're speaking against no to child bride. We're speaking against female genital mutilation. We're speaking against the one that makes us accessible, digital violence, because we are now in a very accessible society. People that cannot speak to you one-on-one will stay behind their keypad as keypad warriors, chanting words with you. And we have said Nigeria has to come to the point that we need to synchronize with this social media platform. We need to ensure that the law gets to the point that if you send someone, you stalk somebody unnecessarily, you speak down someone, the law must catch up with you. And when somebody becomes a scapegoat, every other social media warrior will go to hide and they begin to check whatever it is that they are taking. So these are the steps, and this is what this year's activism is about. And we know that by this time next year, we're going to see progress.
You're going to see progress, really.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. But there are a lot of people have, maybe some people have said that the issue of abuse against, women and girls is sometimes overflogged, because sometimes the way some of these women, the way they present themselves, the way they dress, it attracts all this, this backlash and all that. How you want to respond to that?
I think when you said it, all of us were talking because, the truth about it is that yesterday was also Human Rights Day.
Yeah.
And every person has a right to dress the way they want to dress.
Anyhow.
Anybody has a right to dress the way they dress, and someone's dressing should not be... So it's like blaming the victim. Why are we blaming the victim based on dressing? When you see people saying that it is a psychological issue when somebody abuses a woman, it is not the woman's fault. And so this whole idea of trying to shift the blame on the victim themselves. But what does exposure mean? What does exposure mean? What does it mean? In every culture, I mean, in Africa, we tend to have these unwritten rules, but who wrote the rules? So what does it mean when you say someone is overexposed? Yes, to some people they will say, okay, her hands were showing, her legs were showing. So as long as, is it that she's wearing a bra and pants and just walking around the road with just her underwear? Or is it that she just exposed her hand or exposed her neckline, and so because she exposed her neckline, because everybody has different fetish, so based on fetish, even exposing your toes to a man, some men, if your toes are fetish, if their fetish is toes, so does that mean that because today my toes are exposed, I'm underdressed, and so that man can come and abuse me because I exposed my toes unknowingly that was his fetish? So it's something that we can measure, yeah.
I agree with you, Hawa, and I'm glad you nailed it that way. Let us understand that gender-based violence, when you see perpetrators go after babies.
Exactly. The old women.
Go after old women who are sometimes in their homes.
In wrappers,
fully dressed. So what we're actually saying here is this. The conversation is shifting to a perpetrator.
Okay.
And one of the research we did in Lightweight Media was that we discovered that there are 6 types of men who engage in these activities. And all of these men who engage in this activity of where they perpetuate and try to justify, remember, it's a justification against somebody who has psychological trauma, one, we're not justifying it, and then somebody who has a caveman mentality. Then there are those who deliberately, their goal is that they have misogynistic tendencies or are misogynistic by nature. So they hate women, and what they want to do against women is just to violate women in the most violent forms. So let us understand that the categorization of these different men engaged in this act against women exists. So we should go against those men, and that's why we have the sex offenders register. where you register these people who are involved in these activities. So let us put it out there that men who do this, one, they have psychological problems, so they are not normal, which means we are not normalizing them attacking any woman for any reason. Self-control is what a man should have. The discipline to honor another woman. A mother gave birth to you. You have sisters, you have nieces. You have children around you who you're supposed to be a protector for. So a man that does not protect a woman or protect a human being has a fundamental problem and deserves psychiatric evaluation. That's on the one hand. Then let us look at the fact that in our society today, when you have a conversation that gives a man a pass to commit evil simply because he's a man, and that's why we've seen cases where chiefs, because we've done some investigation, there were 2 cases where we took some 2 chiefs to prison as we speak. They're in prison now. And the only reason why we succeeded in bringing down these chiefs was because the community now understood that how do you dishonor a woman or dishonor a child without their consent? If I do not consent with you or to you that you can touch my body is my sanctuary, just like yours is yours. And that's why the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act clearly states that if you touch somebody without their permission, you've committed a crime. You will go to jail. You will pay fine. Then when you talk about, I know the conversation of indecent exposure, that's why she was very specific. Is it that she's dressed in a bra and pants? That's indecent exposure. But then context is key. If she's in the, what do you call it, beach, and having a great time, that's how you're supposed to dress in a beach. Then there are people who dresses differently too in beaches. Everybody with their personal taste. But a beach is a place where you're allowed to be free to do that. But when somebody now comes against you to justify, we don't want to be justifying this. And that's why the situation actually increases as we speak. Because when you justify it, give it an enabling excuse, somebody now feels I can hide behind that and I'll commit more crime. Exactly. We cannot allow
and I guess that's why they have adorned me with the no excuse more.
Thank you,
yes,
Azu.
exactly.
But there is no excuse.
There's no excuse, yeah.
Isn't it because there isn't enough awareness in Nigeria? And I say this because some have said the media does not give gender-based violence the kind of attention that it deserves. So in spite of activism all year, every year, 16 days and all the others, why does this persist with the media? You are a media person.
Can I tell you why? People know what they are doing. I have an incident where we handled in our organization at Light Tree Media. We discovered some boys. We went to different institutions in Nigeria. Secondary school, universities. And these universities we went to, institutions we went to, we had 15-year-olds who were allowed to go and attend these schools by their parents. Did you know what some of the lecturers were doing, or the NYSC guys were doing to students in the secondary school? They used the phrase, we dey chop them.
Wow.
I chop them. I don't chop them now. I don't chop them. So men take pride in chopping girls.
Oh, is that what they mean by chopping?
Oh, yeah. They are chopping.
I was thinking of
girl.
food.
Oh, but it's a slang they use. I chop the girl. Do you know, I don't know how many of you follow the incident of one top tech guy in Nigeria. I'm not trying to name him. But his own text messages and tweets and whatever he did online came to haunt him later on. And then we are now seeing more NYSC guys. These guys are actually satisfied in chopping girls and they actually tell each other. So you have a community of young men, yes, between the ages of 16 and 35, who are chopping our daughters in secondary and primary schools. And they justify it. And then if they are in monotechnics, they are also chopping these girls. So let us understand that people know what they are doing. You don't need media to tell you that chopping a little girl that does not have the maturity, the sense of discipline, or the know-how to know that this is not the way I'm supposed to
That would be
navigate.
below 18, by the way.
Yes, exactly.
Because when it goes above 18, you are talking about consent.
Yes.
Even if the
Mutual
person is
consent.
18 and that person does not consent, and
Of
you
course.
chop the person,
Of course.
you've committed a crime. So let us make it laid bare clearly. People know what they are doing. So how do we stop it? There has to be serious, enforceable, implemented consequences. Sex offenders register is one. There was a guy who wanted to get a job, but because his name was on the sex offenders register, what I did was, I didn't even know then. I just went to the sex offenders register. I'm like, this guy these people want to employ. Let me even find out who he is. And then he was there in the sex offenders register. So as Nigerians, one of the way we all, and including citizens, it doesn't have to be the media alone. It doesn't have to be CSOs and NGOs alone. Citizens themselves must be part of the solutions. So you go to the sex offenders register and put a name there of somebody who you know is troublesome. It will be vetted and everything, and then we get to know what to do. And then a society where mothers, let me go to mothers now, because I'm not going to only lay it on men. Because we did an investigation, and that investigation was so powerful, even the Police Center in the USA commended our work for it. We discovered that the highest perpetrators of domestic violence in Nigeria are women. Take note, the word is domestic violence. Tech-facilitated violence are by men by majority. But when it comes to the home, the interaction between adults and children, women are number one in domestic violence. So what do? As women, we need to now tell ourselves, it's about time we take accountability. If we're saying men should take accountability, then you as a mother cannot be raising a child in a home where you can physically assault a child. Let me give you an instance. A woman, she is 33, her son is 11 years old. Did you know what she did to the boy? The boy held a top-end phone. The phone fell and cracked. This woman went bonkers. Do you know what she did? She went to the fire where the water was, and she lifted that water and poured it on her 11-year-old child. This is her baby. So what we're saying is this. In homes, these are being perpetuated. You do that to a child, that's trauma right there. That child will grow up to also traumatize others. People who are wounded also wound other people. So it's a cycle that is being enabled by people who engage in these acts, and we must not be excusing it, tolerating it, justifying it, or even saying, now circumstances push them. If there is a circumstance, there should also be consequences.
So how do we begin to break this cycle, Dr. Adeni? Because this thing seems to persist for a long time, and it's been there. And over the years, there have been campaigns against, gender violence, both against, girl child, and even the boy child as well. And what role do you think the society can play, especially communities, in reducing, because, it's difficult to eliminate, let's say, reducing this gender violence?
So when we're talking about how to reduce it, a society is made up of each family. And this begins by making sure that every family gets the right knowledge. Every individual watching us right now, you came from a family. What role are you placing? Are you placing the girl child to be seen as somebody who is just sentenced to the kitchen imprisonment? Or are you teaching her that there is more that she can be? Number one, we need to get knowledge. We need to ensure that if somebody is sent to you, secondly, perpetrators are also family members in the family. When someone is sent to you, maybe she wants to go to school. For example, is one of the a child. This girl left her family house to go and stay with a uncle or a relative. And she was there for years. They were having carnal knowledge of her without her consent, that it led to a medical situation. The girl called out for help from the mother. It led to, she became so sick. I mean, she had this fistula between the bladder and the vagina, so she couldn't control urinary incontinence. Several things happened because she went to a family and she lost her life in the process, and justice was delayed. So we have, number one, the society, every family member should take a stand. If a child or somebody comes to report to you that this person is violating me, do not give that person an excuse. There were other people that this person could have chosen. But the fact that you were the one they picked out means there is something about you. In every, even if it is a rumor, there will be an iota of truth. Why is it not the other person? Why is it you that they pointed to? Number one, so that you should give the person, let the victim see that I see you, I stand with you, I understand you, and stop asking questions like, what were you wearing? How was it your fault? What are the family members going to say? We are not going to embarrass our family at the detriment of somebody else losing her life and making our country to be on the blacklist of high level of sexual and gender-based violence. No. It is not the perpetrator's power should not be more than the victim's voice. That is what we should, that is a society that we should build. And it starts from the family. The mother, the father, anybody reports to you, you take it up, go and meet that person. It is better for you to err on the side of caution than for you to find out that you did not do anything. And eventually that child became another statistic of another Ochanya and loses their child. The blood will be on your head and you will face the consequences. We need to ensure that justice is not delayed, because delayed justice is also one of the things, one of the factors that is making this menace to continue in our society. Let justice be served, and let it be served quickly. We've been on this case for years now, and these perpetrators are still roaming about the streets of Nigeria, and they've not been sentenced to prison. Why? We have a VAP law that is active. We should not delay it. There are other situations of people in leadership, fathers violating the children. It should not be so. You should not allow such a person to still remain in service, whatever it is that they are doing. And I like what I've seen in some organizations. Some organizations will eventually, they will suspend that person immediately, go and face the wrath of the law. So whenever we see that justice is served, it serves as a caution to other perpetrators to know that you will be found out. To know that, oh, let me caution myself. Now, this country is not the same again. If one member of the family shouts and accuses you, you won't be able to go after another child in that family.
But the problem most times is the issue of stigmatization. A lot of people don't report these cases.
And that is why we need
that?
to let the victim know that you don't have to, there is power in your voice. Your silence is weak, but your voice has the power. Come to us, we will speak out for you. We will find the justice for you, because we will not allow the abuser's power to overcome your voice. Your voice has the power to liberate not just you. That stigma is going to, is not, the news is going to be forgotten. It will come and go. Another news, you will just stop yourself. You will get up. You will even look more beautiful the next day, because it is not stigma. The secret for your freedom lies in you releasing that truth out and not covering that perpetrator, but you speaking out your truth. Own your voice. Don't let anybody silence it. If you're a perpetrator, you're a victim, you're watching the TV, you're watching this channel, don't let anybody silence your voice, because your voice is powerful. Your voice has the secret to liberate other victims. When other victims see that you spoke up, and we will embrace you. We're here for you. We're standing with you. And the perpetrators, you will be found out. Yes. Because things are not going to remain the same.
All right. But many say, and that's why I'm getting to Hawa on this. Many say it goes beyond stigma. And so, apart from stigma, why does it still feel for many girls and women safer to keep silent rather than speak out?
So for me, I would say the first thing is poverty. We live in a society, and it's, like she said, it's really good for us to encourage victims to speak out. However, there are some families that, even as a victim, you will not be able to speak out because of the family you're from. Poverty is a huge factor when we talk about gender-based violence in the rural setting. Now, most times, a young girl, we've come across so many young girls who have been abused, and when you're trying to even when you get close to justice, something will happen because the parents will collect money behind closed door to keep quiet. So yes, it's good for us to encourage victims to speak out. However, some victims, their hands are tied. They can't speak out because their mother or father have told them that they will be the one that will kill them if they speak out. Sometimes because they have been given money. It's not even a case of shame now. It is a case of, the money they've given us is going to last us to buy food ingredients. So because of you, we should all starve and we should not eat. So the issue is everybody, yes, the family needs to take responsibility. Members of the families need to take responsibility. We need to train our children to be able to speak out. We need to train our children to know what inappropriate touch means. Because, you know, we come from a society where hugging, touching is encouraged. Aunties, uncles, they always want to hug you. If a child is complaining, I don't like that auntie or that uncle touching me. What do you mean? Are you crazy? You start shouting at your children. You don't pay attention to the signs. So most parents as well are at fault because they're not paying attention to the signs. You are pushing your daughter or your son to that auntie or uncle who they're uncomfortable with. And you don't pay attention to that the signs that they're telling you that I don't like this person, I don't want this person to touch me. So we need to even teach our children. Now we're seeing a lot of younger generation parents teaching their children in forms of song not to touch their private parts, and when someone I would tell my mommy, I would tell somebody, so building that confidence in them as well. But the truth about it is that this is more in the upper class society. In the rural society, they are not teaching their children what inappropriate touch is. They are not even able, they haven't gotten that point. Most times you're just looking for what to eat the next day. So the system as well, like as Lady E said, we have policies in Nigeria for every single thing, for every single problem, for every single challenges we're facing. We have the policies. In fact, I don't even believe we need to write any more policies in Nigeria. We need to start focusing on implementations of policies, because all these policies exist. Now, in another society, for example, a woman who is in a low-income background or a single mother will have support from the government. Social service support to be able to support her children, to be able to feed her children. Now, we don't have that.
Is there a role for NGOs, CSOs in all of this?
I mean, NGOs are doing it. We are doing this. We are going to communities, putting together programs that will empower the parents to be able to raise, build their small businesses, to be able to strengthen their household economic finances. However, it is not the job of just an NGO. NGO is a support system to what the government is already doing. That is what NGOs do all over the world. They support and complement the activities of the existing government. So the government, we need to really say that the government, the NGOs are trying. A lot of NGOs are doing work. They are giving food. Now we're in the festive season, you start seeing distribution of food. But how long can that food last? How long can that food last? We need to ensure that we have built programs that strengthen the households themselves, so that once you strengthen them, they're able to survive and sustain themselves after you've gone. Because the work of an NGO is not to continue supplying. The work of an NGO is to build capacity and live.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Awa. Well, we just want to encourage our viewers that you can also contribute to this discussion. You can send in your comments and your questions so that our guest can respond to them. All right, Ejiro, Hawa has raised some issues, the issue of, the implementation of, policies. What do you think government needs to do right now, to minimize all these abuses? Because just like she said, that there are policies, but they are not being implemented, especially, at the community level, the rural areas, the hard to reach areas, which I know that we don't have enough NGOs to even get to all these areas. What should be done? And also, I want to find out, NGOs, do you really relate or collaborate with communities, the community leaders, to probably, increase awareness on this gender-based violence?
I once said something earlier on. She talked about the significance of removing poverty. Poverty is a very powerful root driver. In other words, if people, because now they've commercialized the settlement processes, I've seen it enough time, it's just heartbreaking. We handled a case as far as the courts. We began the conversation, and before you know it, this other big person, or small person as the case may be, who understand the power of settlement, went ahead to settle. So it means that even our judicial system needs to reinvent its interpretation and how it handles cases of settlement. This is a crime. It is not a civil case. So we need to make that be out there. And if the courts know that this is not a civil case, but a crime has been committed, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, the VAP Act, clearly states that. So it is the onus is on the court system to ensure that come rain, come shine, whether it's the defendant or the prosecutor, these things follow through. That's on the one hand. Then, on the other hand, you talked about the synergy between NGOs, CSOs, civil society, in seeing how they work with those who have the voices, who influences communities. There's enough of that being done. But it goes back to the same community leaders. If somebody comes and commercialize the process with the baale of a place or with the chief in the area, the king in the place, oh dear king, you see this your house, we shall break it down and give you something better. He's just sold out his own community members. So it goes back at the end of the day, not just government, even though we know government need to do more. Like there should be a safety net. I remember doing an investigative work during COVID-19, and NAPTIP came to my rescue. How did NAPTIP do that? They were able to provide us with a number of shelters in Nigeria. Because then we were wondering, how do we save more children who were in violent homes? Where do we take them to so that they don't go back to be in the same environment that perpetuates violence against them? And then we saw cases of pregnant women who wanted to escape their husbands who were violent against them. I'm like, how do we save? Now, NAPTIP came through because I applied the Freedom of Information Act. And I need to commend them for that. And I will want all agencies in Nigeria to do that. Because there's a law, a Supreme Court law, barely 2 months ago, that states categorically that every tier of government in Nigeria must respond to the Freedom of Information Act request, either from citizens, the media, or anybody. So this is my way of now telling government, parastatals, MDAs, agencies to say that you too, as a civil servant, if you are not giving enough data to work with, we cannot also solve some of this problem. That's another government role. So they need to respect that law. It's clear. 90% of the FOI requests are simple, basic requests that any agency can actually respond to. If you're not doing your job well, hold yourself accountable. Don't be offended by the person who makes an FOI request. That's on the other side. Then also, we must understand that even in poor communities, people there actually know what they're doing. I need us to come back to that same place. People know what they are doing. When somebody negotiates realizing that my daughter, like emotionally speaking, psychologically speaking, you as a mother, you know that that girl or that boy, because we've seen increased cases of molestation against boys now, you know that that child is going through a lot. You can tell. You will speak it in your native language or even in pidgin. This my pikin don't come quiet since this thing happened. No. My pikin need dey happy again. No. This boy don't do. This girl just withdraw. I don't know how we go do this matter. You know. So if you know this and you think the perpetuator has a right to settle you and you collect it, then you have told your child to hell with you.
Now, you are talking about situations where parents, pay attention, where parents are alive to these responsibilities. We are talking about a situation where many people are, sucked in to their own hustle and bustle. They leave in the morning, they come back in the night, they leave the children with house helps. They may never be able to notice these things.
So this is the thing. Them force you to born picking. I mean, like, who asked you to born picking?
No, you've had the children. You've had the children, and then life happens, and then you need to cater for the children.
What does that mean, life happens? So the children are life happens?
You need to cater for the children. I'm just saying.
I get what you're saying, but we need to also backtrack, because this is where we make excuses. We say life happens, and then life happens to your child, and you think you cannot be held accountable? Come on, let's be accountable for once, because that's part of the problem we have in Nigeria. We do not like to be accountable people. If we see where we go escape one time. So let's get to the point that you chose to have a child. And as a parent, the onus is on you that the protection of that child, according to the Nigerian Constitution, lies with you primarily, and the state will come in and take if you're failing. It's because we don't implement it in Nigeria. The law says that the child belongs to the state. It's very clear. Yes. So we have civil service, social workers in civil service who are supposed to be enabling this. And this is what I explored in my book, Distortion, where I was trying to make it mainstream for people to know that there are social workers in Nigeria. And the role of the social workers is to ensure that this kind of anomaly is not allowed to continue. Our social workers are sleeping. Let us make it that very clear. We need them to wake up. That's part of the government solution. Yes. Then as well, let me go back again, and I will reiterate this very firmly, because I am unapologetic when it comes to taking accountability. That child is your first and primary responsibility. If part of it is also making the hustle and the bustle, by all means, yes. But to now say you will justify why you are not an attentive, present parent in the life of your child is not an excuse. Let us get back to where parents will say, because I grew up with a father who was on our case. In fact, I don't forget the incident. When I was 9 years old, my father brought, I think it was Newswatch at the time. My father bought this news magazine. In front of it were the big title, Babies Having Babies. This was a 9 years old who was raped, and she was pregnant at 9. And we saw her picture. I don't forget her. She's very fair, has this beautiful curly hair. I don't forget her, even though I was 9 years old. That was how powerful that imagery was. My father made all of us read that article. Paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3. The last of us then was just 5 years old. Did you? No, 3. She was 3 years old. They asked her, little as she was, what do you think about this story? My little sister then said, it's not good to allow men touch you. As little as she was. So the orientation begins from, you got to be an intentional parent. And then with the adult, how are we understanding this? I just knew. It was from 9, I knew the power of consent. 9, I knew that nobody can touch me because me, I learned, my father taught me how to do taekwondo and things like that. We went to learn it too. So let us be intentional parents.
How many young girls can do taekwondo and all that stuff?
No, that's because your parents were intentional. I did boxing. I learned all of those things, even on my own. I had to learn how to fight and for myself as well. So at the end of the day, you will learn skills for survival. Yes, self-defense. You will learn skills for survival, and it's key.
Okay, go ahead.
So I want to say that, as Lady E said, the fact that, you mentioned that parents leave their children with nanny.
Of course, but the
truth is that many don't even live with nanny. They live with nobody. And that's why we keep saying that there are policies and it needs to start being implemented. Why should a parent leave a child at home? There are so many stories they will tell you, especially in the rural. You're talking about nanny for the higher class society. The rural women and families, they don't have nanny option. You see the children, the mother is going to work, she will just drop 50 naira or 100 naira, so that when the children get back from school, they will look for where they will buy fried akara or fried gari to drink. There's no adult supervision on these children. Now, if you were abroad as a parent, you leave your child unattended to by an adult over 18, because you have young people that are abroad that are 18, 19, 20, they're students, and they're getting paid for childcare services because they're adults.
Yeah.
But in Nigeria, it's so alarming when I hear that a mother will have maybe 2, 3 children, and it is the oldest child who is maybe 11 years old or 10 years old or 9 years old who will now be the responsible person taking care of the younger ones. Where does that happen? Where does that happen? And that is where a sex offender has seen that this is an open door. This house never has a parent in it till maybe after 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening. So they have targeted these children. When they get back from school, there's no one there to watch them apart from the 11-year-old. So they are able to penetrate into that home because there's no adult supervision. And this is where we talk about implementation of policy. There should be no household where there are children and children should be left unattended to.
It's really very unfortunate because a lot of family system is broken down right now because the father has to go to work, the mother has to go to work. Unlike in the past where, the men go to work and the women, they stay at home at least to raise the children. So let's look at the major high points now, Dr. Adeni, of this year's, theme. What are the major high points? What did you look at and what did you achieve?
Okay, thank you. So this year we talked about the digital violence because we noticed this is a gap. In fact, Nigeria we don't have a law that is firm on digital violence. People just commit all unnecessary issues, laws like, break laws like deep fakes. You just, one day you wake up and see yourself doing something on the internet and the internet told you that you did this. Another case is porn, revenge porn. Another case of people stalking you online. They will tell you, oh, you posted, you have not responded to my message. As the alpha and the omega of your schedule, knowing that you have to be at their beck and call. We have become so accessible. Years back, as a 2000, If you want to see me, you come to my house, or you come to my office, or you call me at a payphone. You may not even meet me. You will travel all the way from the village. Some people will even miss their way before they find their elder brother and find that their elder brother has traveled. And you have to go back to the village. But now the internet has made us so accessible. And we have to bring this up. We have to give the suggestions to the government. See, this internet has come and it has come to stay. So it is high time that we start making the laws. Synergize with WhatsApp, synergize with YouTube, synergize with Facebook. Create the law. If you get up as somebody, we see a lot of African parents broadcasting news that is fake. You see somebody giving birth to this and start creating unnecessary fear. Put a crime to, put a penalty to it. Yes, it can still keep going on until one day the scapegoat, and I pray that nobody, the person that is going to be the scapegoat, will just have to face the wrath of the law. When you become the scapegoat, other people will learn from your story. So this has come to the knowledge of the Nigerian government, and they cannot say that we have not said it. It is all over the place. On social media, the hashtag is there. Say no to cyberbullying, domestic, digital violence. It's clear. But we did not stop there, because these local women that are part of the statistics, majority of the Nigerian population are living in poverty. We also had to reach out to them, because we can't keep it at that level alone. Because Nigeria is not just the country where you say digital violence and you keep quiet on every other form of violence, because it is very active. We have a large population of over 250 million. Lots of, more than 50% are living in poverty. So we have to make sure that this law also gets to them. We carry everyone along, and this is what we've been able to achieve this year. We made the government know that you have to make a law that, and we're expecting that law to be in action. You also have to make sure that justice is not delayed. It is served quickly. And we also have to let the family members and the people that are perpetrating the act keep going, because the law is soon going to be out and you'll be caught up with. If you do not check yourself, how you go about online, things you post online, things you say online, you will be caught up with. And this is the summary of this year's digital online violence. We have to make sure that there is no excuse and justice is served, and is served fast.
Incidentally, when you talked about scapegoats, what came to mind was a recent incident involving the singer Paul Okoye. Incidentally, the scapegoat was a woman, because who posted, on a certain post that accused him of gender-based violence in his own home with his house help and all of that. And he said he has never done this, but that he will hunt this person. And eventually had to take legal action. The woman disappeared from the social media, left her husband's home just, to run. And eventually they got her, and now they are facing whatever it is. I'm sure they are going through. If he decides to forgive, well, maybe that will be done. Yes. So I'm just making the point that, and that's why when we say gender-based violence, you see, this particular case is a test case. It is a woman against a man.
Okay. There's a cyber law
It is
crime.
not.
The cyber law crime is even clear when it comes to digital stalking and things like that. So we really don't need extra. We might need an additional specific laws to really specify, because people like say Nigerians, even when you make something general, we need to understand. We have to break it down to the least, to the minute.
Different interpretation.
So we behave as if we
Once
don't know what
you
is
say gender-based, many women say, oh, it's against our agenda.
Which is where I have been saying earlier on. Because the conversation we are seeing now, we are become a highly narcissistic society where people believe that because I am on social media, I am supposedly anonymous, it means I can do harm and nobody can catch me. But the cybercrime law says that, look, they go find you. And that's why it should not be tolerated from whether a man or a woman. There is no excuse. There is no justification. A crime is a crime. Violence is violence. Abuse is abuse. Are there consequences? They are there. Plenty of it. The question is, do we want to implement them, or do we just want to keep talking?
As it is with many laws.
So how do we increase digital literacy amongst women and girls, especially, for us to be able to, for them to have a better understanding of what we're talking about?
That's a very powerful conversational question in this context. One, as a woman, you already know you're on a digital street. Social media is a street. Just like in your community, you have streets. The question you should ask yourself is, on your normal street, what do you normally do? If you know that on your normal street, there are certain things they won't catch you doing. Remember that the social media platforms are also streets where people are community connected. So that is one. That psychology needs to shift. Our mindset needs to understand that we are now on a virtual reality street. And anything you do is documented for life. So that accountability is where it starts from. I always go back to accountability. Once you understand that, it's easy to navigate the spaces. Then two, when you're engaged online, how is your language? What are the things you post? Who do you follow? Because now the algorithms on this social media platform is insane. These algorithms are, remember, the tech guys don't care about you. I will say it anywhere, any day. These guys are after their money. Mm-hmm. So if you know that they're after your money, the question is, are you facilitating social media platforms or influencers or individuals or certain way of thinking, echo chambers, where you now go and hide yourself? Oh, these people think like me. So therefore, and if the thinking is about violence, it's about harm or causing all kinds of atrocities, and you feel that's an echo chamber that keeps you safe, then you're a joker. Whatever consequences that will come out of it, you will face it. So we need that consciousness to know that these exist, and if you plug yourself into that space, this is what will happen. As well, too, we must understand that children, I had to get somebody, I saw somebody post something about her daughter. This daughter, she's 5 years old, and she was wearing a bikini. The bikini on a good day, for God's sake, there was nothing wrong with that bikini. But I remember how perpetrators think based on the 6 types of perpetrators we identified. And I said, sometimes accountability starts with us. And I told her, I went behind a DM on Facebook. I said, Madam, you see this picture of your Peking? I better try to move on. She was like, why? So I now explained it to her. So part of it is about, it takes a village to also fight this thing. I don't need to know her for me to send her a DM and say, this is for your child's protection. It's just human community relationships and protecting our environment to be more sane. I said, there's nothing wrong here. But you see, perpetrators, we don't want to, perpetrators, we behave as perpetrators, because I don't also want to use the word excuse. Perpetrators will behave as perpetrators. And if you know they are out there, you also take certain steps. That's one. Then also too, fathers.
Yes.
You need to be more connected with your daughters. I will always emphasize the role my father played in that aspect. You have to be present in the life of your child. I have someone whose father is not with the children in the country where they are. But this father, they're not born them. As the Peking that they come off, won't go to school in the morning around 7 a.m. Before that 7 a.m. when the children leaves for school, he's not based in that country, but he will do a video call. These are even boys that we're talking about. That's a father conscious for his boys, and he will speak to the boys. Then he prays for the boys. That's their own religion. Then he has a conversation with the mom. Has anything happened the night before? So even though he's making his hustling, he is doing the bustling, as you rightly described. He is also what? Intentional about the mentoring and caring and protection of his children. So that is key there. You have to be present as a father. Then mothers, your marriage cannot be more important than your child.
We'll just hold it there, because we need to take a break. When we come back, you will finish your thought line. Then we will read out some of the comments and questions that we have received from our viewers. So stay with us, take a break now. The conversation continues. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Our discussion is still on the 16-day activism. Yes, Ejiro, before we went on break, you were, telling us about, how do we promote literacy, amongst women and girls, child, concerning this digital space?
Okay, so I was just going to emphasize the fact that many mothers, we've seen cases where many mothers actually think that their marriage is more important than the protection of their children. Women need to flip that. We had an incident in Southeast Nigeria that we investigated. And this man, when his wife died, he started having carnal knowledge of his 2 daughters. The first one began when she was 12. The other one began when she was 14. So for 4 years, he was having carnal knowledge of his own daughters. When he was finally arrested, now he's in prison anyway. When he was finally arrested, did you know what the man said? He said he was feeling so lonely. And so he wanted, and he misses his wife in order to preserve. Do you understand how sick that mind is? That's already a sick mind. So let's not even justify it. There is no excuse. So where we're going to is that it was the aunt, that is the brother. This is where I'm going to. The mother is dead. But the aunt of the aunt, who is a sister to the man committing the crime, whom the young girl, the older one, confided in, was the one who took action. She did not say, my brother. She poured the stigma on the man for committing the crime. The stigma is on the man for committing the crime. The championing and the applaud was for the girl for not keeping silent. So we should be rewarding girls and anybody, even if they are young boys, who speak out against these things. That's part of the media literacy we're doing right now. Any child who is able to speak, let us applaud them. The people who committed the crime should bear the stigma for life. They deserve it. That's on the other side. Then we now have parenting. We'll talk about the conscious, intentional parenting. How do you buy, I think it's in Netherlands, if I remember very or was it in Sweden? They no longer allow phones for children. Even in the United States, there's also that conversation going on. That how many should children bring phones to school? And some schools
Australia just stopped children 16 and below.
So everybody is after their own strategy. So they are now conscious governments, intentional government policy. You don't give children, like I said, social media is a street. So do you throw your children out in the street? Don't you put barriers, measures, right? You say, okay, this house, you cannot go past this house. You see these gates, they're not born, you make it past this house by 7 p.m. We've given them those restrictions. So the question is, when you buy a phone for a child, even if the child does not take it to school because the school has banned that child, but you, in your mind, you feel your child deserves a phone. And you keep that phone with that child, but there are no restrictions. What happens? So you allow your child to explore. We had an incident where there was this 10-year-old girl. Do you know her chat history? The mother did not configure her own device with her daughters. So she did not know that the daughter was navigating, they had the phone device and now using the PC, the computer. So she was using the computer to do certain assignments from schools, but she would never use her phone. But the mother was not monitoring the PC. She thought that with the phone, that was okay. But the day we now went to the chat history, history of the website of what this child has been doing, we now connected it to the school. The school gave an assignment. And in defining the assignment in school, the school did not limit the phrasing of the word of what the children were supposed to search for. So this child started saying, you know how this algorithm works. Once you click one thing, they start bombarding you with several others. And this child was going to a site. I'm not going to say the site, but the site was not nice, where this thing started happening. And then we've seen cases where AI, in this age we're living now, AI is dominating and is destroying our children, whether we like it or not.
In fact, Ejiro, let me just pause you there because I was still going to ask you about AI, but let's read out some of the comments and questions from our viewers because of time. And this one is, in as much as I won't support rape or violence against the girl child under any circumstances, you shouldn't forget the need to do the right do the right at the time to avoid certain bad things happening. There is need to check indecent dressing among both sex, especially girls. If there is rubbish all over your body and you expect flies not to follow you, it's impossible. Lifestyle that can cause gender violence shouldn't be undermined to avoid occurrences, while offenders under any guise must be punished. Now, this one is from Nandom Wiep from Jos. It said, what can men and boys do to keep each other accountable when they witness harmful behavior or language like sexist jokes, victim blaming, harassment? How do we educate youth about consent and healthy relationships? What services do you think need to be available in our communities to help survivors of gender-based violence, including male survivors who may face unique barriers to reporting? Thank you for your service. Have a good morning. God bless Nigeria. Then this last one. It says, good morning, discussant and Nigerians. This from Unwe Furu Hyacinth. It's from Abakaliki. It said, truly, gender-based violence seen as an offense against only women is a misnomer. Have there been cases of women clubbing their husbands to death with pistols or instances of poisoning of their husbands? Human rights are dangerously being overstretched by classifying immoral dressing as a human right. Advise women to think back and help in taming our society. I also appeal to some religious leaders who don't care to think and behave aright, and at the crossroads, I ask for the Asian part. Okay, Dr. Adeni, would you like to respond to some of this?
So the first person said that. That person was even contradicting himself. You said, yes, in Nigeria and in homes, we encourage modesty. We do not give an excuse. What do you say about the 80-year-old woman that was raped, or the babies that were raped to death? You can't take the focus off the perpetrators and put it on the victim and think justice is going to be served. No, it doesn't operate that way. Ignorance is not an excuse in the court of law. Whatever it is that person is wearing, he has committed a crime. It's like you blaming someone for why are you sleeping in the night when you're supposed to be sleeping? How did the robbers rob you? You're stripping somebody of their dignity and you're questioning them. What did they do? How were you positioning yourself? Do you know what trauma a person that was raped goes through? You take away the life of that person. You take away the dignity of that person. Can we for once work with empathy as a society? Put yourself in the shoes of that person. As if you're going to the police station and you're going to report, my house was burnt by people, and they're saying, oh, what did you do? Why did you offend them? It doesn't make sense. So we are not condoning or encouraging indecency, and we are standing against. We are still saying there is no excuse. If you're in Brazil and somebody's going to the beach and they're dressing half naked, do they burn you well to touch that person and say, oh, you are naked? Will you try it in another country? Your sense is going to be there and say, oh, this is not my country. So what you cannot do in other people's country, you think you can come to Nigeria and say because she was naked or she was dressing this way, it doesn't make sense. Is that why you're going to violate that person? It doesn't work like that, and we are not going to accept
I'll just take some more messages here.
Okay, you want to?
Because of time. Let me take some messages,
okay, so
then
you can
react.
Yes.
Now, Jakaba from Makurdi writes, and what are some common myths and conceptions about gender-based violence, and how can we challenge them? We'll hold that while we read the others. Good morning, NTA and the guests. I am happy with today's topic, but I wish to let us know or remind us that human rights is doing what is right at every moment or time. In the process of exhibiting your rights, you are definitely abusing someone's rights too. So the only right anyone has is to do something right morally, religiously, and actively. This one is from Hamza Aminu Ado here in Abuja. And this long one from Ogeneovo Godwin in Azari, Bauchi. I want to say that you have been dissecting a very sensitive issue. All your points are very much in order. Indeed, our social workers and child care organizations should be empowered to do their work. NAPTIP in particular needs more funding and security to enable them do their work. As a matter of fact, not everyone needs to have children. Some parents are a threat to their own children. So we need child welfare policing system by our government. The Bible says, he continues, in 1 Timothy 5:8, that if anyone does not provide for those who are his own, and especially for those who are members of his household, he has disowned the faith and is worse than a person without faith. In other words, good family upkeep, or in particular child care, is a part of our worship to God. Let us do the right things, please. So, you want to respond? Okay. Particularly the first one is a question, direct question.
Okay, so the first one was talking about human rights, I believe.
No, it was talking about, it said, what are some common myths and conceptions about gender-based violence,
Okay.
and how can we challenge them?
Okay, so I want to start by saying that when they say people hear gender-based violence, the first thing they think about is a woman who is dressed indecent. Now, what about the boys and the men who are being raped? How are they dressing and attracting people to come and rape them? Because now we're not even only getting females raping the boys or the men, where even the men are raping the boys and the men. So what is the attraction? So this whole idea of blaming the victims dressing, how is a boy or a man dressing that is attracting somebody who is more powerful than them to come and abuse them? So I really don't want to keep touching on this dressing issue because it's just shifting the blame on the victim. Now, what are the things that we can do? We've spoken about this. I think Lady Haight and Doctor have also highlighted this. Everything starts from the family. Everything starts from the home. Yes, the government we've highlighted all the things that the government needs to do. The government does definitely need to channel funds to social services so they can do their work effectively. However, in the communities, we as an organization, Silver Lining, we have what we call parenting classes. We have where we separate the women and the men and actually educate them because some of them don't even know the right thing to do. They are not aware because they're just repeating the sins of their ancestors, the sins of their own parents, the sins of their grandparents. So they don't even know the right thing to do. They possibly don't know. A woman in a rural community, she may not have the money to buy her child a phone, but she may have a phone herself that the child accesses freely without restrictions. So it's about educating them the right thing to do. I'm speaking more from the rural and the low income perspective. I'm not even speaking about the higher income, because for me, if you're living in a higher income environment, you should know better as a parent.
Yeah.
We don't need to educate you. You should know better because your educational background, your exposure should teach you and let you know the right things to do in able to safeguard your children. Now we're going back to those who probably did not have the opportunity to go to school. They did not finish school. Most parents mothers in rural communities, you will hear their stories. They gave birth 14, 15, 16, and why? Maybe they lost their parents and they were pushed to a man to marry just so that they can support the family. So they don't know better because they themselves were children when they were actually put into marriage or started giving birth. So those are the people we need to focus on. And like Doctor said, they are the large population. They are more than 50% actually. They are about 80% of this country. If you ask banks, we don't have up to 15% that have up to over 500,000 in their accounts. We don't. So our low-income population is overly alarming.
It's huge.
It's huge. It's more than 85%. And those are the people we need to start focusing on to help.
Now, yesterday we were discussing human rights here, and I guess we are talking about poverty being a very, very, crucial factor in all of this. So, in this case, how much of a violator is poverty? Because Lady E was talking about, parents having to look after their children, but you don't look after your children with empty pockets and no food in the house. And so you are torn between, the heartbreak and the deep blue sea. So how much of a perpetrator or a violator is poverty in all of this?
Poverty, for me, is the main factor to most of our problems in Nigeria, in Africa, generally speaking. Now, a parent who has to go to work does not mean you cannot find a responsible adult where you can keep your children. Again, abroad, you know not to try leaving your children alone. If you don't have the money for childcare, you will find where you will go and drop the children. They have systems in place where one parent, for example, today is Thursday, I end up picking up my children and my neighbor's children, and they stay in my house until others finish. Next day, my children will go to doctor's house because doctor will pick them from school, and then they will stay in our house. Next day, they go to Lady E's house. So there are systems in place, but we need to educate them because maybe they're not even thinking about this, that you can rotate childcare services around your environment, your neighbor. Like she said, it takes a village. So if you don't have the funds to be able to pay for childcare, there are always systems in place. But leaving children unattended to is a no-no. And government needs to start paying attention to that because that's where we're getting a lot of issues. Even with this incident of kidnapping. It's mostly children that are unattended to in rural communities that disappear. You see a child from Sokoto ends up in somewhere in the east. How did that happen? Who was watching that child? Where were the parents? So it's a combined effort of all stakeholders.
Combined efforts of all stakeholders. Yeah. Thank you very much, Howard. Now, let's look at the issue of Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act in Nigeria. How many states do you think have domesticated this act, and how effective is the implementation?
The last time I counted, I think they've up to 20. Yeah, so that's some progress. I'm thinking it's getting more, but most of the challenge we've had is northern Nigeria. The southern part of Nigeria, I think all of them virtually, because in 2018, 2020, when the COVID-19 happened, people like some of us in Delta State, for example, I championed the conversation about Child's Rights Act, VAP Act, and all that. So prior to that, but then there was this consciousness to say we need to use radio to normalize and mainstream this conversation. So I did that a lot in Delta State and in other platforms where we had to let people know that there's a VAP Act. So what I started doing was break the VAP Act section by section. In fact, sometimes we just take a line, for example, like the consequences of the fine, and then we break that for 30 minutes for people. That was when I realized that sometimes people are waiting for an authority voice to give them permission to do what they know they should have done. I saw an incident where as soon as we finished that breaking down, a father, if you see this man in his rough, tattered, grease-stained uniform, the slippers he was wearing was gone. Threadbare does not describe that slippers. If you see his feet, you could tell that he is immersed in grease every day. If you see his hand, it's as callous as it can be. But guess what he did? Because that day, I emphasized the role of fathers. I say, Father, your first protection is your daughters and your sons. But your daughters must come first because they are more vulnerable because of the vulnerability pointers of our emotional indexes as women. As soon as we finished, it was not up to 30 minutes. This man walked down with his daughter. The girl is 13 years old. This 13-year-old girl was just molested about 2 weeks earlier by a man who is 55, who just gave his own daughter out in marriage 2 months earlier. So when the man came, the first thing he did, my gate officer was like, what do you want, what do you want, what do you want? And there was this scoffing like, I want to see madam, I want to see GM. And then finally he came. And when he came, the first thing he said is, I want justice for my pikin. I want justice for my pikin. And I said, Papa, what happened? That's when we sat down. I got feeder, I got other groups, and then we swung in. That 55-year-old man did not escape. He's in jail. So this way I'm going to, the man I'm describing, you can tell, say, poverty, they finished the man. But what he did was that he realized that his mindset, because this is where the power lies. Every other thing are just facts of life. Poverty no mean say you cannot think. Poverty no mean say common sense go disappear. So he came with that knowledge of a radio telling him that there is a law, there's a consequences, but the only way this can be effected if he took action. This 55-year-old man who raped his 13-year-old daughter, he's his neighbor. They live in the same building. And then he did that. So that idea, he allowed and understood when I said the stigma should be on the perpetrator, not the person who has been violated.
Not the victim.
Not the victim. So some of the myths we also have, misogyny, hate for women is very common. There's a word that is everywhere. I don't want to use that word because I think somehow people institutionalize that word. But this is a word where I can put it under misogyny. And one of the things we are seeing now is a generation that is raising young boys to actually hate women. And then we're seeing a generation of young women hating men. I've always said there's no gender war. But you know social media thrives on chaos, on madness and violence. That's what it enables once your algorithm gets checked into that space. When you see a situation where boys and girls are beginning to hate each other, that is a medicine for disaster. At home, parents need to understand that you have to raise children to respect each other. Another myth is the thinking that boys are superior to girls. That's where it comes from. A man told me that girl, na me get am. The idea that because I paid by price on your head means that anything I want, you have to do it. Religious teaching tells them that who is the head of the home? There's nothing wrong with being the head of the home. But what does the head of the home mean? Does this mean abusing the privilege? Does it mean excessive behavior towards the other person? No, that's not what it means.
I wish we could go on and on. We've run out of time so that we can take the final word from Dr. Demola. Please, your final word as we close.
So my word is this for every Nigerian citizen, because the onus lies on each and every one of us to make sure that gender-based violence, whether digital or any form of physical violence, is erased completely from our society. If you see something, say something. Don't leave the victims to be at the beck and the call under the power of the perpetrators. The victim's voice should be louder than the power of any perpetrator, no matter their place in the society and in the family. Your family is not more important than the survival of any child that is put under your care. If you are at your deathbed, you will not be thinking that, oh, how many millions are in my account? You're not going to think, you're going to think, what did I do to the children that were placed in my care? Did I do my best?
Thank you.
So please, let's make sure if we see something, we say something, and we take responsibility for every child in our care.
Thank you. Hawa, your final word, please.
My final word is on implementation. Implementation by the government for all the wonderful policies that have already been written to be able to safeguard children, women, men, every citizen of Nigeria. I want to ensure that we begin to raise awareness and find a way the government can channel funds to support the social services of Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
They can do better.
Okay, your parting shots.
Be accountable. You know what you're doing is bad. Stop chopping girls to the young adult male, NYSC guys, and boys in universities. Please stop chopping our young teenagers. They are not meant for you to chop. And stop sharing them on social media that you chop them. We will gather you. We will gather your information and we will put you in the sex offenders register and we will note you. And when we note you, we will come after you. The law will not be merciful.
Thank you very much for that. So, Victor.
All right. Lady Jerome Okoro, author and CEO, Light Ray Media. Thank you very much for your time and your thoughts as always. Let me also thank Hawa Abbas Hadejia of the Silver Lining Initiative. We thank you for your time. Dr. Olajumoke Adeniyi, Head of Operations at Hassam Foundation and Creative Director at Salt and Light Brand. We thank you very much for coming on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so many thanks for watching. I'm Victor, as we will see you again tomorrow.
I'm Ademola Adeoye. You do have a lovely day.